Long days, longer nights. You feel? Now, I don't even know, lady. Take it, go. It's too much. Whoa. I'ma do it anyway. Put 'em in the dirt, say it again, man, and that's a reverse. Never rehearse, jumping in first. Call up the nurse, put the beat in the hearse. This is absurd, take the berserk. Don't get on the tracks, man, and they better swerve. Don't got a nerve, man, I never curse. Just casting these spells when I'm spelling these words. That's real, that's too real. I've been Roosevelt, I need a new deal. Trying to figure out what I should do still. I'm really never waiting here too still. I don't even know what I should say at all. Should I jump on in? Should I get involved? God surround me, they love to talk. I take it all with a grain of salt. It's what that I'm doing, they never see through it. And all of this rap that I see that they ruin. I came in the game and I'm trying to undo it. And still they all say they don't know if the shoe fit. I gotta see through it, man, won't be deluded with all these illusions. I know it's disputed, I gotta keep going. They see what my root is. I tell you I run this, I'm done with excuses. Give me for a minute, trying to get what I've been giving out. Do it for the tickets, I don't listen to the critics. I'ma push them to the limit. And these rappers getting timid. I've been balling like a pivot. I don't step into the scrimmage. I just play it when I'm in it, trying to run it till the ribbon. And they know that I've been tripping when I make them see the vision. Man, I put them in the prison with these bars that I've been spitting. And this life that I've been living, I'ma go, I'm on a mission.
Take two for the drop, jaw plotting on the boy. See me putting in the work, whole milk, I don't do the soy. Always been about my king, never about the money. Now you know, I'm a trap before I stop the grind. I'm a trap before I stop the grind. I'm a trap before I stop the grind. Said I got my eyes on. My eyes on.
I just did a 24 song in a bed, in a building, they already know my name. At the show, she gon' want a picture, she can hang. Just to tell a friend, oh yeah. I shoot my shot with this gold on my wrist while we throwing the parties, they throwing the fit. Through a finesse, you can spot me a sucker, a lot of you really is holding the lick. All of my homies legit, really is sick. I probably throw in my clip. I sell a boat to a fish. I sell a record, you know it's a hit. They see the effort I put in this music, and I ain't been giving no favors at all. All of this chef and I got in the shop, and I think that I probably could cater to more. I love the way that she answered the phone. I know that she ain't expect me to call. I got my eyes on you, my eyes on you, yeah.
Take two for the drop, jaw plotting on the boy. See me putting in the work, whole milk, I don't do the soy. Always been about my king, never about the money. Now you know, I'm a trap before I stop the grind. I'm a trap before I stop the grind. I'm a trap before I stop the grind. Said I got my eyes on. My eyes on.
Yeah, I think they gon' need a minute. Shot and got them people back up in their feelings. When they told me I was finished, by the mother in it, knocked out the building. Yeah, now Victor co-defendant, even Nike witness. We the next to kill it, show them the king how they living. Pictures so good, but not looking for business. They be stepping in from the back door. If they see you independent, then they pop jokes. That fear to the blows, boy, James Burke. Side stepping on the shade, see the footwork. I'm trying to be about this business, but still they want me in the kitchen with the bacon soda whipping. The thought alone so offensive, cause my guy, he gave his body just to pull me out the trenches. Hold up, wait, if I never see a million or the recognition, but I see the finish. Look, they're the greatest when they losing, gotta keep on shooting even when you're missing. Yeah, now focus on the past while living for the day was never recommended. Rapping VA, Tony Bennett, his kingdom can never be bought cause it's given and I live that. Yeah.
talking to. Just know I ain't no regular fool. Could be anything in the world, but I can never be you because I stand tall like I'm on my tiptoes. Baby, you think a little too small. I got big goals, baby. Ain't where the money at. Look, I just need the info. Pronto, I go and get it and split it with my kinfolk daily. And I'm the type of that might change my number on you. Yeah, that's how you react when people took a slumber on you. Pretty brown skin, baby, I can see the summer on you. You see all the bread and I know it make you wonder, don't you, don't you, don't you? Ooh, I ain't surprised at all. Seen them rise and fall. Went up the mountain, it wasn't hard to climb at all. At the top, I found some relief. I finally got some peace. Carry on, but please don't mess up the mood. Yeah, I worked too hard for it. No, I need to beat it before you mess up the mood. Yeah, ooh, I worked too hard for it. And I need it, so please don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Yeah, I worked too hard for it. Yeah, don't mess up the mood. Oh, it's so crucial, I gotta keep it. It's in the ass everywhere. No, it's not a secret. And I bet they didn't think that I'd ever get it. Everything you've done, I did it. The life you're dreaming, I live it. And I'm coming in high, you better get out the kitchen. Yeah, I could make a hit on whatever you pitching. Baby, let me fill up whatever you missing. Or you like it up at the top, it's a better view, isn't it? I'm not surprised at all, no way. Hey, what you need, come on, just pay the fee, I supply it all. Went up the mountain and it wasn't hard to climb at all. At the top I found some relief, you see, so please don't mess up the mood. Yeah, I worked too hard for it. No, I need to beat it before you mess up the mood. Alright, ooh, I worked too hard for it. And I need it, so please don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Don't mess up the mood. Oh, come on. I worked too hard for it. Yeah. Don't mess up the mood.
Ashamed, think something new under the sun. You can't take back them things you already done. No. You blame things that you do on somebody else. No. But they all see is you need help. Oh, but still you try so hard to cover up your games. You try so hard, hoping that one day something gon' change. You waste all of your time covering up your tracks. Spend all your days running away. You gotta watch your back, and that's the facts. You spend so much of your life scheming and trying to get over. Got you wondering why you come around. All you get is cold shoulder. Yeah, you try so hard to cover up your games. You try so hard, hoping that one day something gon' change. You try so hard. Yeah. You try so hard. You try so hard. Yeah. So hard. Give it. Can't run away. You gon' pay. Still you try so
I know I'm sucking it in after that too. We have got a great lineup of speakers still to come. Up next we have Anna Paulina Luna. She's a close friend of Turning Point USA, a superstar, so please give her a big, warm welcome.
She gon' make you move. She gon' make you move to Miami.
Well, hello, everyone. So I can tell you guys, this is actually my third annual Young Latino. Of course, last year, we know with COVID, things changed a little bit. But not so long ago, I was like every single one of you in this room, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about the power of using your voice. So I think like most people, when you realize, and just kind of a quick show of hands, who was raised conservative? Just, okay. And who kind of woke up on your own? All right, so there's a few of us out there like me. You know, for someone like myself that didn't know what a conservative was and that wasn't necessarily raised in a conservative family, I never thought that I would be on stage talking to people. I never thought that I would have, I think, evolved into the person that I have become and that I would later on, I'm sure you guys all know I actually ran for Congress. But thank you. But that all started because I used my voice. And so I remember my turning point, no pun intended. I was actually sitting in a hotel room, and at the time, I was on track to go to medical school. I had just finished this ridiculously hard STEM program at the University of West Florida, where I swear I was hazed for 4 years. If there's any STEM majors in here, you know what I mean. And I ultimately started volunteering and working on my free time, actually with a counter-trafficking organization. And this counter-trafficking organization showed me something. It showed me that, one, with immigration, there's a huge problem with what's happening at the southern border. And that, two, I didn't see anyone in the media, I didn't see anyone who looked like me that was a prominent Hispanic voice out there saying, hey, look, I'm not racist, I'm not xenophobic. In fact, my family's, part of my family's from Mexico, but I don't agree with what's happening with the open border policies because of these people that are getting hurt. There's a very real humanitarian crisis that no one's talking about. So I'm sitting here in this hotel room and I'm watching this, or I have this TV on in the background, and at the time I was watching CNN. Don't judge me. And I'm sitting there and I hear the commentator yap, yap, yap in the background, and then it was like, I think a good chick, she goes, yeah, MS-13, women and children. And so I stopped what I was doing and I started paying attention. And I started doing that because in my research, what I realized when I started reading the State Department reports, what I started realizing when I was reading the articles that even CNN was putting out in 2015 talking about this poor woman by the name of Carla Jacinto, who was raped 43,000 times in the time that she was actually trafficked, I realized that, one, people weren't talking about this, but also, two, usually cartel does traffic women and children in order to make money off of them because, unlike drugs, women and children and humans in general are a commodity that you can use time and time again, and it's actually a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so I'm paying attention, and I realize the entire time that this commentator is doing nothing but, one, putting together funds to bring these people from Mexico City that had been stopped by the federal police there all the way up to our border, and then they turned around to film our own Border Patrol turning them away. So, one, first of all, I absolutely support Border Patrol. Two, I support ICE because ICE and Border Patrol both help keep people safe on both sides. Thank you. But after that commentator got off the news and it cut to a pillow commercial, I realized that we were being lied to. And when I say we, I was realizing that not just the American people, but they were actually weaponizing cultural, ethnic heritage of Americans that are of Hispanic descent, specifically Mexican Americans, because we're the largest voting minority in the country. And of course they were talking about that. Of course they were going to make us feel like these big bad Republicans, these big bad conservatives were the ones to blame, and that was the reason why we should vote against them in the 2016 election cycle. In fact, this was the tail end. This is right before President Trump was elected. And I woke up, and I'm so glad I did, because once you wake up and you see what they're doing, you can no longer go back to being quiet. You can no longer go back to hiding behind the television or your computer screen. You want to be like so many of you here today. You want to get involved. You want to get out there and get active. And had I not done what I did, which was ironically at the time, I, like so many people in my era, whether you're Gen Z or millennials, I recorded a cell phone video, a rant. And that went pretty viral. And because I did that, that's when I realized that I found my voice. And yes, of course, I lost friends. In fact, I lost a few friends. So many of my friends told me that I was racist. They didn't want to be my friend anymore. That how could I be, someone that operated in hatred. I was called racist things online like a coconut, which is really not even that offensive because I consider myself more a vanilla cracker than anything. But literally, like, about my skin tone from other people that were like me, but that simply didn't agree with me. And that's when I realized that hate ideology was something that I was proud to not be a part of. And that when I was able to finally wake up my own family, which when my own mother found out that I had voted for Donald Trump in 2016, she actually started a Facebook support page called Mothers Whose Daughters Voted for Trump. She did. And she later on re-registered as an independent, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure she had voted as a Republican for the first time in her life this past election cycle. And that is all because I chose to not stay quiet anymore. That is because I chose to, whether or not I was going to lose friends, whether or not it was comfortable for me, I chose to make a difference. I chose to stand up for what my beliefs are, to believe that it's okay to be pro-life, pro-God, pro-gun, and anti-socialist. That it is okay to say that you want legal immigration and to disagree with open borders because that's not racist and that's not xenophobic. In fact, that's the most caring thing that you can do. It's called tough love. It's called making sure that you're not wanting to go along with the cartels and the human traffickers, that you don't agree with 600 unaccompanied minors coming to the border every single day, that you don't agree with a multi-million-dollar industry that prides itself on trafficking women and children. We're supposed to be the United States. We're supposed to be a country that is free from slavery, and yet here we are letting it happen right underneath our noses. And then later on, when I was with Turning Point a couple of years back, I happened to have a confrontation with Kamala Harris at the airport. And I don't want to say confrontation, I call it run-in. It was a run-in, okay? But she didn't want to answer those questions. You have the Vice President of the United States, and I'm not endorsing anyone, I'm not telling you who to vote for, this is simply my opinion, that you have a woman who's used her race card to attain office, saying that she was representing minority women, and yet she's quiet on the topic of trafficking. She's quiet on the topic of the fact that most women trafficked, and the largest targeted demographic is immigrant Hispanic women and children. Why is she quiet on that? Is that the United States that we're supposed to be representing on the national stage? No, it's not. Is that someone that's supposed to be representing minority women? Is she doing a good job? Is the entire presidency maybe backtracking a little bit on what they promised? I mean, the reason we have this problem in the first place is because you had them campaigning. You had AOC, you had the entire DNC, you had the establishment media saying that we need open borders and mass amnesty. But do we agree with that? No, because we don't agree with what's happening, what the long-term effects are. And we're seeing that every single day here at the border. So use your platform, use your voices, take that chance to get involved. And honestly, the sky's the limit. I can tell you that I really, really never thought that I would probably be doing anything in politics. That was like the last thing that I ever dreamed could happen. But now, because of what I'm doing, I have a podcast that's launching on the 23rd of this month. You guys will be able to tune into that. Thank you. That's on iHeartRadio. But I've also been able to make some incredible friends, and I've been able to work with some incredible people. And also, too, if you happen to be, and mind you, not everyone's going to be a media personality, not everyone's going to be a politician. Maybe some of you are writers. Maybe some of you can produce documentaries. Maybe some of you can produce film. But use your talent that God gave you to change the world and leave our country a better place than it is than when you first found it. And that is really what I think our goals and objectives are. Make sure that you guys are mentoring other people. What I find is that the best thing that you can do is if you see someone that needs help, help them. Don't turn them down. You know, there's nothing wrong with someone that, and I know I'm talking to a younger generation here, but I cannot tell you how many times I see people just because they have, X amount of followers on Instagram that they don't want to help someone that's up and coming. That's your obligation. You got there. Use your talent, help it, expand it. And we know that with censorship, and we know with what the liberal media is doing right now, that we need all the help that we can get. So there's a big tent, and there's a lot of room for expansion, and I think that we can all be there. And so I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come speak with you guys, because I know that someone in here, I don't know who's considered running for office, I don't know who wants to get into the news, but I know that someone in here in a couple of years will probably be doing what I'm doing. And honestly, I look at it like a badge of honor that I was able to talk with you guys prior to that, because I genuinely believe in the younger generation, and I believe in standing up the leaders of tomorrow. So with that, I have about 10 minutes, and I won't be able to spend too much time in the back taking photos after, but I can answer questions. And so I was going to tailor it a little bit shorter to open up the floor to you guys and see what questions you all had for me. Don't be shy. I don't bite. Okay, I think they're going to bring a microphone up. Here we go. The mic guy.
Are you going to hold it? Okay. Hi, my name's Veronica. I really respect you for doing this. And my question is, how do you basically tell other women, as a conservative woman, it's kind of seen as, you're not supporting women. How do you tell women that the stuff that we believe in, the values that we have, really are what's better for them without seeming like, like you're stuck in the 50s or whatever?
Okay, so it's interesting that you bring that up, because my family, like I had mentioned earlier, my mom has changed her mind a little bit, but I have several family members that are staunchly liberal. And up until recently, it wasn't until I told my story, which I don't know how many of you know my story, but I grew up within the welfare system. My mom essentially walked home from an abortion clinic, decided to have me. Thank you. We had family members that really struggled with substance abuse, and then I joined the military to really get out of it. And that was life-changing. Thank you. But what I always tell people is I speak from a place of experience. I find that not everyone you talk to is going to understand the, I think, religious and moral perspective. A lot of people might just understand the statistics. And so what I tell them is, when you talk about a woman being empowered and as a true feminist, would be someone that wants other women to excel, opens up the playing field for them, but doesn't necessarily need to hate men in the process. And I tell people that, look, I have a father, I have a brother, I respect and I love them, but there is no glass ceilings, there's no limits other than the limits that I set for myself. And because I'm making those correct decisions as a conservative, I'm clean. I got married. I don't know if you guys are dating anyone, but I got married 10 years ago, and I know I look like I'm 12 years old, so I was pretty much a child when I got married. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily everyone's plan, but that was my plan, and it worked for me because I found someone that I really loved, and that person I've been able to develop a life with. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think society tells you to be the Cardi B's of the world, but I disagree. I think that you can be the Candace Owens instead.
Thank you so much.
Hey, my name is Michael. I just want to congratulate you. I was actually watching keeping updates with just different congressional races across the country, and I was watching yours because I love Florida, and just
Me too.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and I saw that you were running against somebody who used to serve as the governor of Florida. He is now he's been in Congress for a couple of years, and the polls had you losing by 16 points.
17, actually.
17.
Full suppression.
And you actually lost by 7, which is actually huge, was it 5? Even better. So you made up a lot of ground in that congressional district that was that the Democrats had double-digit lead. And I remember you tweeted on election night, you said, although tonight did not go our way, this is not the end of the road. So what does that mean? What can we expect from you going forward?
Well, I can tell you that part of what I realize is that the media does have a lock and control on the Hispanic demographic, and they do that through Univision and Telemundo. So who knows who those are? I do. Yeah, boo. So actually what we're doing now, and what I realize, is that I have the ability to connect people, and although I'm not done with politics, I'm not saying anything else because Turning Point is a nonprofit, so we're leaving it at that, that I will be, and I am currently the vice president and chief correspondent for El American, which is a bilingual news company, and it's conservative. So we're going to be doing...
Sweet. So you're just going to be going to media. Do you have a future in politics, running?
Well, it's weird because everything cross-pollinates, right? Like media does pollinate with politics, that pollinates with even activism. And so how I closed the gap was I did grassroots activism, but part of that means that we need to stand up these young voices, and that we need to have media that's willing to do that and to translate it to people so that they understand, and that's what I'm currently doing. So sky's the limit. I can't say anything too political, but don't count me out yet.
Sweet, that's what I like to hear.
Thank you
so much.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for the speech. It was very empowering. My sister is going to Bob Jones University, and I just want to know, what will the Equality Act mean for Christian colleges that are offering financial aid?
So I think that, one, it depends on, are we going to have legislators that are basically with a backbone to stand up against it, because the Equality Act is not so equal from what we're seeing, right? And I think that also, too, the thing with financial aid is that, you know, regardless, I know that for my university, I obviously went to a secular university, but I was still able to qualify for it. So I wouldn't honestly be able to tell you any financial advice in that perspective, but I can tell you that right now, I mean, the biggest problem that I have with that is the fact that it's not respecting freedom of religion. And at the end of the day, what we see the left do a lot of is doublespeak, and we see them do a lot of these policies that are actually very oppressive to people that don't agree with them. And so I can tell you that the best thing that your sister can do is, one, look at scholarships. If she really needs the financial aid aspect, there's plenty of scholarships out there, and I'm sure people also from religious organizations that would be willing to give to her so that she can continue to attend. But that also, too, I mean, stay strong, because I feel like right now, especially being a person of faith in today's day and age, you're going to be looked at and demonized because you are standing up for what's right, and don't ever back down from those beliefs.
Thank you so much.
Hey Anna, Chandler here. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Something you said during your speech really reminded me, and I don't really have a question, but more of a statement. I went to my very first political event just about 2 years ago. It was the Young Black Leadership Summit. At the time, you were the director of Latino or Hispanic engagement with TPUSA, and you were at that event. And my brother and I, we needed to go to the White House. You helped us do that. You paid for the Uber, you rode with us. That was an amazing thing that happened. And I think that when you said during your speech about in 2 years, you want somebody else doing exactly what you do, well, it was 2 years ago that you did that for us, me and my brother, and now we're doing the exact same thing you do. So I want to thank you and everybody else who's been involved in making sure that we are all engaged and all inspired with making a difference in this nation. So thank you for doing what you do, and let's get it.
Thank you very much. I did not pay him to say that.
Hello, Anna. I want to say thank you so much for raising the issue about human trafficking in your speech. I think that's an extremely important topic that not enough people in politics really talk about. It's also a topic that I'm very passionate about fighting against. I'm involved in International Justice Mission chapter at UT Austin, and I want to ask you, is there a way that is effective to reach as many people as possible in a campus or even local setting to really raise the issue with our leaders about human trafficking?
Yeah, actually, in fact, if you do organized events, I actually found one of the best events I did. I think I was in Des Moines with Turning Point. But I went to go speak to a college out there, and I was talking on human trafficking, and here they are putting out flyers saying that they were, protesting against some white supremacists. Clearly, I'm not a white supremacist, guys. But what I found is that because so many people showed up for that event, there was actual staunch leftists there that were agreeing with me, because I realized that a lot of people are only that way until they become educated on the topic, right? And so once they found out that I wanted border security because I didn't want human trafficking, and then I was able to present them with evidence from the State Department, not just from some weird website, but literally from .org websites and sources, that those people opened their minds. So I would say definitely do something on your campus, and just on human trafficking, how to get involved. There's organizations like Our Rescue. It's an organization that I still work with, founded by Tim Ballard. It's one of the most prominent counter-trafficking organizations in the country. And you can do local events, you can do events for your city, and those are nonpartisan ways to, I think, reach out to the other side to say, look, this is, although immigration's been something that's been super politicized, it's something that actually shouldn't be. It's a nonpartisan issue, and here's why.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Reina. Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed your speech. I had a question that I've honestly been waiting to ask almost the whole time I've been here. But I wanted to ask, what should we do as young women who are basically, put down because of wanting a family? Like, let's say, I just want to have a family and that's all I want to do with my life. And how come I'm getting judged because of that? However, if a guy says, I don't want to have a family, he's seen as a jerk. So what should we do about that double standard that this world has?
I think that it's really important, again, to use your voice, but also to, I mean, there's so many things that prove with science and facts that having a stay-at-home mom actually does help out the child with development the first couple of years. Thank you. The first couple of years of a child's life it's very important that they're with the mother. And I think that if that's what you want to do and you find a good man who's willing to do that, and frankly, I mean, I would love to do that. I tell my husband all the time, you know, like, let's do this. But the point is that there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's also to you surrounding yourself with people that hold the same value systems as you. If you have friends that don't support that, if you have friends that aren't looking to be in monogamous relationships, of course they're going to think you're a weirdo. Look at what they're doing. You know, I would rather, though, I can tell you, and I'm about to be 32 now, but I would much rather be where I'm at, basically in a long-term monogamous relationship and married and about to start a family, than off trying to find someone on Tinder. So I think that you're on the right path.
All right, last question.
Hi, my name is Mary. I'm also from Florida, and I'm also of Mexican descent. Woo. Yeah, thank you for being here. Well, I wanted to ask you, how did you find the strength and really just the determination to keep going after you ran for Congress against somebody who in Florida we know as the flip-flopper? How did you find the strength to keep doing what you're doing and all, and not let the defeat just get you down?
So it was obviously, anytime you lose an election, it's not exactly easy, but I've always been in the mindset that if you fail at something, you figure out what you did wrong and then you go back for round two. And so maybe I'm a weirdo, but I found that actually after that, I was able to not only help other candidates that have since been announced their runs, but also too, I was able to work in Georgia and really see what was going wrong with the Senate races out there and why we lost. And so I think that if you are willing to accept defeat, then of course you're going to lose. But if you can look at an election like something as a learning process and realize that just because you lose one time doesn't mean you can't go back. In fact, Barack Obama lost his first election, then ran on and won Senate and then became the president. Newt Gingrich, former speaker, lost 3 times a congressional race and ran on to become one of the most influential figures in the 80s and 90s and still is to this day. And so just because you lose one time doesn't mean you can't come back and kick butt any other time after that. So learn from your mistakes, guys. Thank you.
We are so excited to hear from Governor Susana Martinez.
Good afternoon. I want to first thank all of you for giving me the time yesterday during the fun event in the evening, to letting me to get to know some of you and sit down and talk with you. I think you all are awesome. I wish I was where you are right now, in how you've given things a lot of thought. I met a young man who's 15 years old, and I don't know where he is, but he's here. 15 years old, and he has it all planned out already. He's going to run for Congress when he's 25. Those are amazing goals. And those are the things that, in my lifetime, keep in mind, this was probably, well, I was a freshman in high school. And as a freshman in high school in 1974 is when I started opening my soul to accepting that I had dreams too, and that I needed to figure out how I could do it. And that's how I became the first female governor of the state of New Mexico. And the first female Hispanic governor of the United States. So I wanted to share a little bit about my story because I think it's super important. Kind of give you ideas of how I did it, and keep in mind, this was before the computers, before social media and tweeting and all the other things of how you can build teams and create a good campaign. But I grew up in El Paso, Texas. All right. I grew up in El Paso, Texas. and I went to UTEP. But when I was growing up as a freshman in high school, Riverside High School, and as I was in school, I remember a group of ladies who got together with me, and there were two teachers, Miss Ross and Miss Smith. And these two teachers, what they did was have a group of girls get together on a Saturday afternoon. And as we got together, they wanted to talk to us about, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I remember looking around to the other females that were in the room, and I thought, all I want is a date for the spring, fall party and a new dress, but I got to have that date. I wasn't thinking beyond a few months. But they said, where do you want to be in 5 years? Well, I knew I was going to go to college because I had been impressed quite a bit in my family. I did not know how I was going to pay for it. The reason I didn't know how I was going to pay for it is because we didn't have a savings account. My family lived paycheck to paycheck. We literally went to the grocery store once every 2 weeks on payday. I remember my mother was super strict because we were in Catholic school. They pinched their pennies to make sure my brother and I got to Catholic school. And they would put a freezer with a key so that our bologna, our bread, our potato chips, any cookies, milk for the 2 weeks was locked in the freezer and taken out as we needed it to make sure we had lunch in our sacks when we went to school, because there was no going to the grocery store in between. And so really we lived paycheck to paycheck. But when I met with these teachers, they started to open my mind to say, where do I want to be? And I loved watching the debates that would take place on TV of the senators on the floor, and there was real debate, true debate going on. Not what you see sometimes nowadays. And I thought, God, I'd love to be that. But all I saw were a lot of men. And so when I responded, where did I want to be? I said college, and then I knew I wanted to be in law school because I thought most of those senators were actually lawyers, that they had to sort of be that. I didn't know. And so I went on, of course, to law school eventually. But when they said, in 10 years, where do you see yourself? And I said, well, maybe mayor, I think. I was selling myself short because I didn't see other women in positions as mentors that I could reach out to and say, how is this done? I have that dream, but I don't know how to get there. And she said, why are you stopping at mayor? And I said, because I don't know how else to get to the place I want to be. They said, why not governor? And I said, oh my God, I don't know. They said, why not president? And I said, oh dear. There definitely hasn't been a woman. And they said, why do you stop dreaming and limiting yourself? Why don't you start to figure out how you get to where you want to be? And so from that day forward, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I didn't know all the steps. I didn't know how I was going to pay for college. When I wanted to go to college, there was no money to pay for the tuition. So I got a BEOG grant. And when I got a BEOG grant, that's when I learned money is never going to stop me from getting my education. Nothing is going to stop me from graduating from college. There were a bunch of financial institutions or grants or really good grades that get you scholarships, but I am not going to stop getting the education that I needed so that I could show up and be prepared when I decided to run for governor. I needed to have all that together. Now, I mentioned to you I was the first female, and I was the first female Hispanic governor. However, those two things are something that I'm very honored to be, but they're not qualifications. It's what I bring together, I bring to the table with my ideas because of my education and my training that allows me to bring more to the table. Yes, we have different experiences from others, but so do you. Each one of you have different experiences in life that you bring to the table in solving problems. It's not just people of color who have experiences that help solve problems. And so I wanted to make sure that I was prepared. And my parents taught me that I had to have courage. Courage to do the right thing. And when I figured out after I left law school, I went in and I went to school in Oklahoma University. Anyone here from OU? Wow. Now you understand. It was hard for me. I went to law school. I had never left home. I was 23 years old. I left home and went on to Oklahoma University. And while I was at Oklahoma University, the one thing I learned the very first night that I was there was about what you should do when there is a tornado headed in your direction. And I thought, I had my TV up, I had gotten all the leftovers from my cousins, they'd all gotten married, I wasn't married yet, so they had 2 sets of plates and dishes, I got the extra set, if they got 2 toasters, I got the extra set, and so I had a way to set up a little house, a little apartment. And I hear the beep, 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 beep on the TV, and I'm thinking, oh, what is that? A smoke alarm? And it says, tornado headed to Canadian County. And I thought, what county am I in? I had no idea where I was. I knew I was in Oklahoma, in Norman, but I didn't know what county that was. So the first thing I did was figure out the next day to go down to the very closest convenience store and ask for a map and say, what county am I in? Because the next time this happens, I will be prepared and hide in the bathroom. Because we didn't experience those things in El Paso, Texas. And one thing that my parents did, because they believed in the American dream, they believed, my mom was she was a office assistant. She had to work. There wasn't a choice. My mom had to work. We had to have 2 people in the family working. And she worked as an office assistant all her life. And then my father, who was in the Marine Corps and was a Texas State boxing champion from the Golden Gloves 3 years in a row, when he started to have a family, he became a deputy sheriff with the El Paso Sheriff's Department. So I come from a law enforcement family. My son, my husband, my father. And when I was a senior in high school, they decided to open a business. And I thought, this is a little crazy. We don't have a savings account. We have a checking account, but that goes every 2 weeks. We need capital. You need something to back you up. But they believed in the American dream, and my mom continued to work during the day and do the paperwork at night at the kitchen table. My father was a cop, and he started to work on his off days and off time to get contracts so that he can get contracts for the security guard business that he was starting. I was their first employee. I was 18 years old, and I was carrying a .357 Magnum that I was trained to carry, and I was patrolling the parking lots at a Catholic church bingo. So you all know what a Catholic church bingo can be like, right? It is full. And I'm directing traffic and making sure no one's breaking into cars. And so that was my first job with my father and my mother. And eventually, they grew that business to over 125 employees in 3 different states, state of Texas, state of Oklahoma, and New Mexico. And they became successful because they believed in the American dream. Now, my parents were registered Democrats. So it was time for me to register. Guess what I registered as? A Democrat. A lot of people I know and my friends register as their parents do at the beginning because they just aren't sure. They just sort of follow the family tradition. And so I registered as a Democrat. I was in Doña Ana County. I had started my prosecution career, and I was handling some of the most difficult cases possible. I was handling cases of sexual abuse, physical abuse, child homicide cases, adult rape and homicide cases, gang and corruption cases. And I did that for 25 years. To have the ability to be a voice for a child in a courtroom was the greatest honor of a lifetime. It was amazing for me to be able to do that and bring justice for the absolute horrors that these children had experienced. And so as I had an American dream as well, I was then decided to run for office. But about a year and a half before I decided to run for district attorney, what happened was 2 Republicans called me on the phone and said, hey, can we have lunch today? Now, these were friends of ours. My husband and I knew them. And they said, can we meet at such a restaurant at 12 o'clock? And I said, sure. I knew the party switch was about to start the conversation. So I told my husband, let's go ahead. Let's agree to do this. We're going to get a free lunch out of this, and we're going to get the hell out of there. Because in New Mexico, Republicans are outnumbered 3-1. It is a blue state. And so there wasn't we didn't have a whole lot of Republicans that were getting elected. And so we sat down and we talked. They didn't talk at us. They asked us questions. How do you feel about welfare? Should it be a hand up or a way of life? How do you feel about the Second Amendment? We answered these questions. How do you feel about law enforcement? How do you feel about a variety of issues? We answered. They never used the word Republican, they never used the word Democrat, they never used the word conservative, and they never used the word Republican. We just had a conversation about values, and we walked out. And I got in the car in the passenger seat, leaned over to my husband, who was in the driver's seat, and said, I'll be damned. We're Republicans. And I was just as shocked for myself, because I'd been a Democrat, but no one had had that really intense conversation with me before. And here I find myself. Am I going to be true to myself and change parties? Or am I just going to stay the traditional Democrat that my family was? Well, we decided we were going to go ahead and change parties because we were going to be true to ourselves. But I was going to run for district attorney in a year. And the possibilities of that being the beginning of the end of my political career was very real. So we decided we were going to kind of scoop into the county clerk's office, change party, not be noticed, walk right out, and then off goes the campaign. Well, there were reporters and cameras, and on the front page of the newspaper, I'm changing parties from Democrat to Republican, and that I would be running for district attorney. Well, I won my first race with 60% of the vote. But the way I did it is I kept having these conversations with people that I would meet. I mean, you know, ladies, we spend some time in the beauty shops, right? Nails getting done. You got 3 or 4 ladies around you and say, hey, how do you feel about this issue? What do you think about welfare? You think we're stuck. We're having our nails done and we're not moving, and you're sitting there. Have your hair colored? Got to sit there for 45 minutes or so? Yeah, having a conversation. Hey, you know, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? Many of us have been raised in conservative families, but are still registered as Democrats. And that's how it was real in my county. And so I had the conversation with many of them to say, okay, so you're a registered Democrat. And I said, let me talk to you about my ideas when I decided to run for governor. Let me talk to you a little bit about what I'm thinking of doing. I like to work with data, genuine, good data, and make decisions off that data that I receive. I like to get into the weeds of education, economic development, all the things that any leader needs to have at their fingertips to be able to make good policy. Because it's not about me. It's about the leadership that you bring to the table, the knowledge that you're bringing to the table, how prepared you are to have those conversations and ask those questions. And so eventually, having had this information, I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing. But when I decided to run for governor, it was on my 50th birthday. I knew I was going to do it at one point, but this was after a 25-year career as a prosecutor. And what happened was, I was either going to buy a Corvette, well, I was going to go ahead and announce for governor. And that's when I decided I'm actually going to run for governor. And I made the announcement. The odds were totally against me. And after I heard some of your questions of the previous speaker, you know, what do you do when someone thinks that you want to be a mom and that, you know, the negativity around it? Oh, push that aside and prove them wrong that you're going to be an amazing mom. Push that away and don't let it impact you. So when they're telling me I was against all odds because I had a 3% name ID in my state, in spite of the fact that I had actually prosecuted some of the most horrific cases in our state, but the media market was from El Paso. So the rest of the state did not know of the work I had done. So I had 3% name ID. After 16 very long months of actually campaigning, and New Mexico is the 5th largest landmass state in the country. So it is huge. And we hit the road, driving to every small town, rural area, big city. We only have one big city. Big city, lots of little towns where Republicans were never comfortable to go to because it's a 90% Democrat county or 90% Democrat city. And so they would just mark it off as being, they'll never vote for me. I needed them because even if every Republican voted for me, I still lose because we're outnumbered 3-1. I love challenges. And that's how I met many of you, and that's what so many of you actually feel. You love the challenge. So after 16 very long months of looking at people in the eye, telling them what I was going to do, remembering my promises, not being a politician, but remembering what I was saying so that I could follow through on every one of those things. 16 long months. I end up winning as governor with 52%. The amount of Democrats and independents that I had to bring with me was amazing. Now, when I would ask Democrats, would you consider voting for me? Oh, God, I can't change parties. Oh, my grandma would roll over in her grave. This can't happen. I said, really? This is like a religion. And I said, but what about when you get in the booth, you're still a Democrat, but you look at the candidates and what they have to offer you. Not that I'm a woman and not that I'm Hispanic, but what we have to offer you to, grow our businesses, to make sure our kids are learning better. We're 49th in the nation in education when I took office. It's horrible. They've been in charge for 40, 50 years, the Democrat Party has in reference to education, and we're 49th in the nation and they're okay with that? So I was talking to them because they had kids and they cared, but they didn't realize, they didn't connect all those dots. I said, so get behind your little voting booth and in your private moment, decide who you want to vote, but you can cross back and forth without changing parties. That's how I won the second time as well, with 57% of the vote. So certainly it was amazing to me 2 weeks before the general election to learn that I was going to be the first female Hispanic governor in the country if I won, because I was 2 weeks ahead. And I did not know that. I didn't know that that would be what would happen if I got elected. They sort of were keeping it from me. I don't know why. I think they thought it would make me a little bit more nervous. It is very humbling, an enormous honor to be a female and a Hispanic leader, because I hope to be a mentor to young people. To be at this summit with you all, how young and bright and just articulate, and the amazing conversations I had with you yesterday, I'm in awe, absolute awe. But you have to have courage and determination to overcome those naysayers. You have to say, I'm going to prove you wrong. Tell me no again, and I'll prove you wrong again. Just tell me no. One of the things that I did when I first took office, we had the largest structural deficit in the history of New Mexico. My predecessor spent money like it belonged to him. I always remembered that was not my money. It was your money. It was actually the people of New Mexico who gave the government that money. I always remembered that. And I had made promises for 16 months that I was not going to raise taxes, not one penny, to a single family. I was not going to raise taxes to a single business. I was not going to make it more expensive for them to live and raise their children in the state of New Mexico. Well, what happens 2 weeks while I'm in office? A leader, Republican, from our legislature comes to see me. Keep in mind, I'm the first woman. Darling, you just got to raise taxes. I went, darling? But he was an older gentleman, and it didn't bother me. You know, you don't have to make something out of everything all the time. You just don't. And so, you know, he was an older gentleman. I wasn't going to point out he called me darling. It didn't matter. But he's, darling, you just got to raise taxes. We got to fix this budget issue. And I said, but I looked people in the eye at the many events I had, and I promised them I would not. And I am willing to lose my job to keep my promises. And I think that's where politicians have lost their way. They will say whatever they need to say to get elected, and then they do whatever they want once they have been elected or in their positions. People are tired of politicians. They want leaders. They want people with a spine. They want people with courage and commitment. But they also want people who have conversations with both sides of the aisle. We have to do that. I had to do that. My House and Senate were both Democrats, a majority of Democrats, for 60 years. So I kept saying, okay, we can change parties, but that doesn't mean that we're really going to change anything by my being a governor, a Republican governor, and my predecessor was a Democrat governor. Changing the gubernatorial position from Democrat to Republican doesn't mean all of a sudden there's just going to be a great change. That doesn't mean that. You have to have conversations with the other side. And I had been having those conversations with the voters, so that hopefully they too were having conversations with the elected officials in their districts, because they liked the ideas that I had communicated with them. We need to get rid of the rhetoric. The blah, 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 blah. That's what I want to do. Well, what does that mean? After a while, you get tone deaf to the rhetoric. Want to, cut taxes, okay, no. What does that mean to me? I'm not going to raise your taxes in your small pizza shop that you have. I'm not going to make it more expensive for you. I want to make sure that you thrive. I'm going to bring more businesses to the state so they go to your restaurant. I want to make sure that you can send your children to whatever school you need to send them to, and they're not stuck in failing schools, because that's what they are. They're stuck in failing schools. So that's what I wanted to do. And I gave them those promises, and I never forgot them. So we accomplished a lot by having those conversations across the aisle. If you don't go across the aisle in the state of New Mexico, you cannot accomplish anything. Well, we did. What we did is we put more in education than we ever have in the history of New Mexico, but not just for the sake of putting money into education. We targeted the money. We restricted the money. You're going to help children who are in the 4th grade that cannot read at the 4th grade level. We're going to make sure that we have a project where kids that aren't showing up to class, and we figure out why aren't they showing up to class or going to school at all. We're going to make sure that our advanced kids have advanced placement courses, so they're not stuck because they don't teach at a higher level, because they're able to handle those. We're going to make sure that very targeted dollars. Before, we used to just dump the money to education and say, spend it as you'd like. As you know, after 60 years of control by the Democrats, that was a big mistake, because we were 49th in the nation. Our graduations rate was 63%. 63% of high schoolers were graduating from the state of New Mexico. horrible. By the time I left, graduation rates were at 74%. 74%, and we raised the bar every year because it was so low. We put more money in early childhood. We made sure it was targeted and spent the right way. We made sure that we had an economic development. I was traveling the country making sure we were bringing companies, and we did. We brought Netflix to New Mexico. We brought Facebook to New Mexico. We brought Safe Flight to New Mexico. There were hundreds of jobs. We were able to make sure we were working with vocational schools. We made sure that we were working with colleges. Do you know graduation rates in New Mexico? It's a 6-year college rate. I asked one of the presidents of one of our colleges, and I said, what's the graduation rate of this particular college? He said 23%. I said, 23% of all the money we give you are actually making it out of college? If that was a business, it'd be shut down. I said, and he goes, oh, wait, that's 6 years. I said, when did we start 6-year plans? I went to college and I finished in 4. And I figured out why. They were making you take more and more classes so they could make more and more money. And making you take those classes were unnecessary for you to have the degree that you were seeking. I said, oh no, we're getting rid of that. That junk needs to go away. And so in economic development, we were doing some amazing things. And of course, public safety as a prosecutor and the chief law enforcement officer of my county, it was so important to me to make sure that the people in our state were safe. For you to go to work, for your kiddos to go to school, for you to be out at a restaurant. And so I passed laws that I actually signed, working with the Democrats, that allowed us to make sure we had stronger penalties for the drunk drivers. We had such a problem in New Mexico of drunk driving. Huge problem. Making sure that there were greater penalties. We passed Katie's Law. Katie's Law was, Katie was a young lady who was murdered, raped, taken out to a dump site, placed on fire to hide the evidence, and we actually were able to get the DNA from this lady. From this young woman, the victim. And we were able to then pass a law that allowed us to take the DNA, upload it into a federal system, and capture, actually prove unsolved crimes because of the evidence you left behind. And now we were actually capturing repeat rapists and those that are assaulting people and breaking into homes and bringing them to justice. I couldn't have done that without across the aisle. You all are an amazing group of kids. So many of you know where you're going. And I say kids, I'm sorry, it's my age. I know you calculated when I said 74 when I was a freshman. But you have vision. I refuse to be canceled. And you have to stand up and say the same thing. You have to say the same thing. I refuse to be a politician, I refuse to be canceled, and I insist to be a leader of the people we serve. And if you remember that every single day of your leadership positions, you can't go wrong, and you have to be willing to lose your job for actually voting the right way, signing the right bill, pushing the right agenda. You have to be willing to do that for doing the right thing. And once you do that, the world is yours. Well, I want to thank you again. You all have been amazing. It's such a joy to meet with you. I will be here someplace, I'm not sure where. I sort of follow this young lady that comes with me. And I will be open for any questions during the break and during the day to answer your personal questions one-on-one, because that's the way I like to do it. Thank you so much. Be amazing leaders. Yo quiero dinero. I just want the green, want the money, want the cash flow. Yo quiero la venta, sí, 50, sí.
Up next is Lexit founder Jesse Holguin.
guys hear me? What's up? What's up? Man, first of all, like always, I have to give all glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Always, number one. Wow, but it's just a blessing for the warm welcoming. You guys, it's a blessing to see so many conservatives. This is the fake news media's worst nightmare, seeing all these Latinos conservatives right here. But I'll start off by telling you how my story and how I got started getting into politics, Lexit, and all that. For all of you who don't know, I grew up, I was an ex-gang member. I grew up like how most kids would maybe grow up, maybe looking up to movie star or athlete or something like that. My goal my whole life was to be a gang member. That was my goal since I could always remember, because every single male in my family was a gang member. My dad, my uncles, my cousins, my brothers, like every single male. So I always grew up looking up to that. So I got into a gang real young, and I was trying to earn my own name, my own respect. So I started doing shootings, and I went to youth authority for several years at very young. And then by the time I got out, I was like all crazy, all institutionalized. And so long story short, like I can't go into whole details, but I ended up, had the power. I had the power. I was running my neighborhood, so I had the power. I could say, you, do this shooting or do whatever. And I had women, I had respect. I had everything that lifestyle has to offer, I achieved. But I still wasn't happy. So I was working with my boss, and he was an older Christian man, and he started sharing the gospel with me. And I never heard it the way he was saying it. So he was telling me, so I'm listening to him. I said, all right, that sounds cool. Maybe one day, I told him, I'll go to church. Maybe if I ever get married or something like that, maybe I'll go to church. But I told him, because as soon as I got off of work, me and my friends, we had the cars, the guns, everything. We were going to do another shooting. But I didn't tell my boss that. I just said, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Maybe one day. And I said, but you know what? I don't think I could be forgiven. And then I did too many things. And he said, no, you never heard the story about like King David in the Bible? And I told him, nah. And he said he was a great man of God, and he was sleeping with his soldier's wife, and he had him killed. And he started, so I'm listening to him. I said, all right. So that I went, and I was a painter at the time, and I prayed, and I said, God, help me to change. And like I said, you would have thought I would have been happy, because I achieved everything that you could have hoped for in that lifestyle, but I still wasn't happy. So I ended up doing the shooting. I went to jail, all of that. And then I got out. I got like saved. Like I was learning about the Lord and all that stuff, but prison is hard, because I made a mistake where I was trying to walk on both sides of the fence. I was trying to kick it with the guys in there, but learn about the Lord. So I was trying to do both, and that don't last very long in prison. So I ended up falling away. And the day I got out, all my homies were at my house, and they were like, we want you to run the neighborhood again and all that stuff. And I tried to tell them, no, that's it for me. I want to go to church. And they were all against me. So I'm arguing with all of them. And even my family, I'm arguing with all of them. And my own mother, tells me, I'll disown you if you turn Christian, because they hated Christians, my family. So I had all of that, and I was fresh out. And I wanted women, so one sinless to another. I ended up getting to some guy. And I went to this guy's house, and I was just going to kick down his front door, go all up in the guy's house and get him. So I was kicking down his front door. That's just a little glimpse of the kind of person that I used to be. So I was kicking down his front door, and he shot me out the side window. And I got shot and paralyzed. So they took me to the car, and I had no blood or nothing, because the bullet went through my lung, and all my blood was going in my lungs. So I was choking on my own blood. So they told me, they were like, what's wrong with you? And I told them, I don't know. I think I'm shot. I can't feel my legs. And but I had no blood. So they lifted up my shirt, and they're like, yeah, you're shot. So I got scared. I was like, oh man, I'm shot. And then the ambulance came, and they were all on me. The ambulance and the police, they're talking. They're like, he's not going to make it. His only chance is to call for the chopper. So they tell me, we're going to call in the chopper. We're going to airlift you and all of that. So I'm telling myself, man, hang on for the chopper, hang on for the chopper. So finally it comes. They put me in. We're airlifting. We're flying. And you could feel it when you're dying, everybody. When you're dying, you could feel it. So I was right there dying, choking on my own blood, and I got scared. The only thing on my mind was, I'm going to go to hell right now, because I knew I was just kicking down that guy's door and all my past and all that. So I just started calling out to Jesus. And it was a trip because I was all scared, physically, everything dying and all like that. But once I started calling out to Jesus, I thought a wonderful peace came over me. And it's beyond words. I can't even describe it to you. I was just so at peace and so comforted. And then ever since then, the Lord has been using my life for so many things. I ended up starting going into juvenile halls and prisons, doing Bible studies, preaching to my ex-gang member homeboys. Now even my whole family's all saved now. They're all even going to church, everything. But it's not me. Don't get it twisted. None of it is me. It's all God. It was all because of him, not because of me. But so that's how I started growing in my faith. And as I was growing in my faith, studying the word and just growing like that, I was a Democrat. I was raised a Democrat. My whole life I was a Democrat. I wasn't really too much into politics, but I always knew I was a Democrat. And I told my family, why are we Democrats? And they said, because the Republicans are for the rich and the whites, and the Democrats are for the minorities and all that. So that's what we taught. That's all they said. That's all I knew. So I was a Democrat. And then, but as I started growing in my faith, I seen they were against all my godly moral values. They were against just a constant attacks on my faith and Christianity and just everything. So as a Christian, I was like, I could no longer support that party as a Christian. So I started, that led me at first, so then I wasn't saying I was neither or whatever. I was just like mad at the Democrat Party. So that led me to start doing my research. I started doing my homework. I seen they founded the KKK. I just started learning a whole bunch of stuff. I was like, wow, they never taught that in school. You know what I mean? Like, why come they ain't teaching that? A bunch of the stuff I started learning about how foul the Democrat Party was. So then I was like, oh, they ain't no good. And then, so then when Trump came, I wasn't too big on Trump at first. I was more for Cruz. I was going for Cruz, but I just knew Trump was better than crooked Hillary. So, but what Rick called me to get involved was, I was just sick of seeing the fake media constant attacks on Trump. And then a bunch of Latinos where I'm at, they were conservative and they felt the same way. They're like, what? We like Trump. I don't know what the hell CNN and them are saying. We ain't like that. We're pro-life. You know what I'm saying? We ain't like that. So just got a couple other Latinos, David Pasuto and a couple other Latinos were like, you know what? We got to, because I seen what Candace was doing with Lexit. So I was like, you know what? We got to start one for Latinos. So then we just started it up, and we've been, ever since we've been, like, I feel, you guys all seen that Latinos went up 8% for Trump. That's huge. You know what I mean? That's why we shouldn't be discouraged. Like, I know a lot of people are like discouraged after the election and all that, but Latinos, we shouldn't, because at least we showed out. We went up 8%. That's huge. And I feel Lexit, we had a lot to do with it. Not all of it and all that, but I feel we busted a lick. Like, I have a great squad of influencers where they're all great. Some of them are even here. And we all bust a lick. We have shows. We busting out even Spanish shows. And we do content videos and that. We're just constantly showing Latinos. And then Latinos, they could relate to us because they see me and a couple of my members tatted up, X-Game or whatever. We're just everyday Latinos. I sound, we're just everyday Latinos, but we love God, we love our country, we love America. We're against socialism. So that's what we've been pushing. Yeah, and then another thing too is the left, they always try to make it seem like Latinos are for open borders. Like, we ain't like that. Like, even I'm in LA, my neighbors, I have neighbors all around me, and they're illegals and all that. And even them, they're even pissed off with what's going on like at the border. But they've been here for a while, working all that. Like, that's like totally insanity. Not only that, remember how Biden, he didn't want even cameras to see the cage. Remember, even the cages, all that. They were all over Trump because of cages and all that. And then look at the hypocrisy. It just shows they don't care about Latinos. They just do anything. They manipulate us for votes. That's why Latinos, we need to quit falling for that. We got to quit letting them use race, because see, this is what they do. There's like, look, race, everything racist. Don't look over here, pro-life. Don't look at taxes. Don't look at open borders, socialism. Look, over here, racism, everything about racism. We got to stop that, Latinos. We have to know Vote on the issues. Vote on the policies. Vote on your godly moral values. That's what you should be focusing on. Not only that, how about Biden? Okay, so like I said, he was saying that they couldn't have no footage of the cages that he had, right? Remember? How shady the heck is that? Where he said he didn't want no footage or nothing. And then like a few days later, Project Veritas and them show the videos and wow, how shady. Imagine if that was Trump. Just imagine it. He was trying not to let nobody see it. We see it, and it's all like that. And it just makes me sick how, especially over here in California, it's bad. I don't know if it's so bad over here in Arizona, but everything's locked down, everything and all that. But yet they don't care about these illegals not social distancing. They're all in there, no masks, no nothing, and they're not saying nothing about that. You know what I'm saying? It's just all hypocrisy from the left. I'm just sick of it, and that's what made all of us to do what we're doing. And we're, like I said, we're against socialism, everything. But most Latinos are conservative, they just don't know it. Like when you start showing them, look, are you pro-life? Are you pro freedom of speech? You know what I'm saying? Are you against men and women's restrooms? Just like in all ways, what Latinos are for that? You know what I'm saying? But it's just, we've been so long indoctrinated and that mentality of race and all that. We got to start educating them. That's why, like me, Anna, you see all of us, we're all pushing hard. That's what we do. But we need everybody else to be involved. Like imagine, everything at Lexit and everything that I've done was with God, but with my phone. Imagine just a dude on my phone, look at all we accomplished, all the people we reached, thousands and all that. You can all do the same, just like me. And not only that, like Lexit, we try to help all you guys. So and if you guys make good little content or whatever, I try to, like, I know other organizations don't do that, but I ain't call no names, but we do. So if you even make content or whatever that you feel is good on pro-life or whatever, just blast it to me and I'll post it up on our sites, on Lexit and all that, because we try to help out. I want there to be thousands of Jessies and thousands of all of us. You know what I'm saying? Instead of Jesse, I don't want it to be all Jesse famous and all that. So my team knows. If any of my team members were out here, they would tell you that it's never about me. I always try to lift up all of us, Lexit, all of us. We're like the Avengers, not Jesse. We're the Avengers, all Lexit team, Lexit movement. But that's what I want to say, but I have a couple minutes for a couple of questions if anybody would want any questions. Well, I think there's a mic coming. Here it comes. But our biggest enemy, guys, that I think the biggest thing that we got is the fake media. That's the biggest. Like Trump used to say, they're the enemies of America. That's the biggest enemy. That's the biggest thing that we're up against is the fake media. So you guys turn off the fake media.
Hello, sir. So I have some close friends there, but like we're Christians, we're Hispanics, and we're like very close. The main thing we disagree on is politics. And so using like, what is it called? Christianity to convince them, like I looked up abortion and I seen like multiple verses, but let's say like socialism or communism. Do you know like any good verses for that, like to prove them wrong?
Well, everybody has different things. Like mine is my faith. That's what moves me. That's what got me to switch and all that. But it could be anything. It could be second. Maybe somebody could not be religious and they, like I said, against socialism, free speech, whatever it is. So it doesn't really matter. But there's all kinds of scriptures, all that for socialism. You know what I mean? You're supposed to work hard. Work hard, you shouldn't eat. You know what I mean? There's a lot like that. But if you message me, I'll glad to try to send you some.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. So the question I have for you is, you did mention that you were in a gang, and I know a lot of people from my school who have that kind of like upbringing, and so I kind of see like how that hurts them, how their mindset is like, you know, they feel oppressed or they don't feel like they, you know, really have a place in society. So how do you plan to like inspire those kind of people?
I just like this, like I'm doing right now, I just tell my story, and then they see that I'm real. I'm not up here, I'm just a guy. I'm not over here with statistics and type and Harvard and all this and that. I'm just a regular, everyday Latino, and most Latinos could relate to it like that. In all my team, I always tell them that. My team, like any of my team members know, I always tell them, just talk from the heart. Don't try to, you know what I'm saying, trick people and whatever. Just talk from the heart, be you, be genuine, and that's why I feel all the other movements and things like that we've been successful is because people like that. They like that we're just genuine, we're just us, you know what I mean? So just be you, just be like that, and then it shows better because if somebody's from the hood or whatever, like you said, that your friends are, if somebody else comes up to you that's been rich or whatever that they think, they're going to be, and he tries to talk to them like, this dude doesn't know how it is to live in the hood. He doesn't know what it is. Like, they're not going to relate. But if they see me, they're going to be like, wow, that dude, ex-gang, remember he was running his hood and all that. He's a Republican, you know what I mean? That's why the left hates me. I'm their worst nightmare. Like me and Kingface, rest in peace, he was one too. Like, we were the worst nightmare.
Thank you.
Hey, Jesse, my name's Mary. I'm from Florida. First of all, thank you for sharing your story with all of us. Everybody in my row, when you were talking, all of us were like getting chills, what you were saying. It was amazing, amazing testimony. You got to keep sharing it. So anyways, okay, I think many of us have been there before where you walk into a family gathering and everyone's like, oh, there's my cousin who's conservative, my cousin, the Trump girl, you know, that kind of thing. And you're like, okay, you know, I love these people, so I'm just not going to mention it. I'm not going to talk anything, current events with them, that kind of thing. Just want to keep the peace. But I care about them. I care that they are going to vote for values that advance us, that values that are good for society, good for all of us, especially in the Hispanic community. How do you start that conversation without ostracizing family members, ostracizing friends, and being that person who's, you know, nobody likes anymore? How do you do that?
Just talk to them in love. That's what I just tell them, like the Bible says, speak the truth in love. You know what I mean? Just come out, just talk first. Don't try not to be argument. Just give them truth and facts. That's the best way to show. And then show them your testimony. Like, I don't know if you used to be former Democrat, you could say, hey, I was a Democrat, but this is what, or show them what moved you. Say, hey, especially if you know them, like, you know they're pro-life, or, because most Latinos, like I said, are conservative. There's something that you could know that they are, you know that they're pro-Second Amendment, and then you could start there, like, hey, you're pro-Second Amendment, how are you going to vote for that party? You know what I'm saying? Or you're Christian, you're Catholic, how are you going to vote for killing babies? You know what I mean? How are you going to vote for men and women? That's going to start it off, and then that's how you plant a seed. And then don't get so discouraged if you think, oh, they're not hearing it, because you just will plant a seed. Maybe you'll get to them and start thinking, you know what? You know what I mean? Then maybe they'll get them to listen to one of our videos or Turning Point or something like that. And then that's how most people that you know that switch, it starts like that. It starts, you know what I mean? So just plant the seed.
Thanks.
Yeah, one more.
All right, so thanks for coming, man. I know you're pretty big in SoCal. You always show out and do a lot for us, so thank you.
Right.
So, you know, we talk about talking in peace, being the bigger person as a conservative, especially a Latino, put a good face forward. You know, but most recently, you know, the racists, the KKK, and, you know, the neo-Nazis, you know, they don't come out anymore, you know. We're not with them no more, and they know that. They stay in hiding. But the real racists that are loud and always out there are the white liberal. So someone like you, coming from where you're from, similar background to me, how do you respond to that when you got these college white kids who think I can't even get an ID or do math?
To me, all that's a joke, eh? Because I actually did time in prison with actual white supremacists, actual KKK dudes or whatever, swastikas and all that all over, and they were cool. I never feared them in my life. I more feared my own race, dude. I got shot by my own race. Most blacks and Latinos get shot, killed by our own race. I never worry about, you know, white supremacy. The left and the fake media, they try to act like, oh, white supremacy is the biggest. No problem. Ain't no friggin' problem. Hey, go to my neighborhood right now. That's the little dudes right there. They'll laugh at you if you try to say white supremacists, like, especially Latinos. We're knuckleheads. You know what I mean? We ain't scared to know. You know what I mean? That's just stupid. That's just a narrative. That's why whenever they try to talk like that, it's a joke. It's a joke to me. Like I said, they just want it to always be race. Like, here's the carrot. Race. Everything race. So just get your eyes off of that. Like I said, focus on policies. Focus on godly moral values. Vote on the issues.
So what would you do when the real racism is coming from the Democrat Party?
What'd you say?
What do you do when the real racism is coming from the Democrat Party and these white liberals? Like, how do you respond to that? Because it's not the neo-Nazis anymore. It's the fake woke white guy down the street in my college.
I'll even say BLM's racist.
Yeah, they are.
Racist.
Facts.
I'll say it. BLM's a bunch of racists. But those are, and like you said, the most racist that I've come through is from white liberals, like you said. So I'll expose them or I'll clown them if they're on some of my posts. I try not to, but sometimes I'll sound them like, what? Especially when they try to call me so many times white supremacist. I'm like, yeah, straight Mexican from the hood, ex-gang member, but I'm a white supremacist. That's all you got, really? You know what I'm saying? That's kind of good if that's all you got. But I think my time's up, guys. But follow Lexit. We're the real Lexit. All right, let's talk about it.
Waiting for you to shake it and shake it. Make it or take it, the point is we made it. Quarterback the game, call us Tom Brady. And it's not our fault that we have all the ladies, but it's hard to see these ladies when your middle name's Equator.
Let's give a warm welcome to our ambassador panel.
Taki taki, taki taki rumba.
All right. Thank you guys for coming today. We are so excited to be able to talk. I mean, we've been talking about so many things all day, and we're excited to just keep elaborating on all the things that are so important to us Hispanics and all the values, all the conservative values right here. Well, me first. My name is Bianca Rodriguez. Next to me is Priscila
Magaña.
Magaña.
And I think we're doing this in Spanish, right?
¿Verdad? Se me había olvidado. Vamos a hacer el panel completamente en español, ¿ok? ¿Están listos?
¿Están listos para eso?
¿Ya? ¿Están listos?
¿Están listos? Vamos.
No habla español. I'm just kidding. We're going to be doing this in English. So don't. I mean, if you want to mix a little bit of Spanglish in there, that's totally fine too.
Cool.
And so next up is Grace Aldaña. Okay. And then Joe Bazraoui.
Hey guys.
Right. So if you guys just want to start, introducing yourselves to everybody, like we can start with you and talk about how you became a conservative and all three of you guys being Turning Point USA ambassadors, of course, that aspect as well.
Definitely. Priscila Magaña, mi familia es de Guadalajara, Mexico. I am a first generation here. And I'm so excited and humbled to be here on this stage. My background is I'm self-made. I have no formal background in any sort of education, but I was able to build a business. I have two businesses actually now. I'm 33 years old. This is the land of opportunity. So if I did it and I educated myself without the formal way to do it, I still did it. Education comes in many forms, and I think that's truly for me. It was the turning point, coming here, discovering an organization that fit my values. So thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to share my story, and hopefully it helps you guys.
Thank you, Priscilla. Grace?
I'm Grace Aldaña. I am a correspondent at Right Side Broadcasting. I am a journalist at Freedom Wire News, and I'm the founder of my own blog called The Republican Girl. So I guess my background is I was a college student in San Diego, California. So I guess you guys could say that I have a little experience dealing with liberals. So basically I started feeling silenced on campus, and I discovered Turning Point, and they stand for free speech, pro-America. I felt like our country was under attack when I was really going to school on campus in 2016. So I pursued opportunities with Turning Point. I went to my first conference at Young Latino Leadership Summit, and here I am today. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you so much. Joe?
My name is Joe Bazraoui. I am the Turning Point USA ambassador. I'm the CMO for Today's America, and as well as I'm a proud Jewish Puerto Rican. My mom is from San Juan, Puerto Rico. Where are my Puerto Ricans at? Love Puerto Rico. There they are.
Same.
I live here in Arizona now. I was raised in Pennsylvania, unfortunately, but it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here. It's amazing. I'm also a host of a podcast, Cup of Joe, if you guys ever heard of it. I mean, we shoot it at Turning Point headquarters. It's amazing.
Okay, so to kick things off, let's talk about, a little bit more, just because you guys are influencers and seeing how so many people on the left and how just I feel like a lot of people are more criticizing of influencers when they're conservative. So how has your experience been, just trying to develop your brand and becoming an influencer and also just trying to handle all of that hatred from that side?
I just want to clarify something. I struggle with the word influencer. I like to call myself a woman of influence. And I think that that's really important to clarify when you're out there spreading messages. And I think that, when I started building my brand, all the odds were against me because, you struggle so much with all the naysayers and the negativity. Once you are able to focus and turn it all off and really dive into what's fueling that passion, you have to grab that and take it and build on it and keep your fire going. I think that was the biggest thing for me, is finding other like-minded people that shared that same passion, focusing on the positive and talking about the positive things that are happening out there, focusing in on the positive. So when you do get attacked, and I get attacked a lot for my conservation and my hunting and outdoor background because I choose to hunt, and so a lot of the times I'm being shut down, and it gets draining and taxing, but to me it's laser focused now, and I think that was a big thing that helped me at the beginning in building a brand, is I just stayed focused on the positive and continued to spread those messages without any fear, because I think that's the main thing that you get is fear. So what's the opposite of fear? And you just have to keep building on that. And I think that was the big help in building my brand at the beginning, was just staying laser focused.
Yeah, I think that's so important what you said about keeping the fire burning, especially being a conservative on social media, because you do get attacked from not only the left, but you can get attacked from the right as well, depending on what your views are, and it's really difficult to get that kind of backlash, but it's so important to keep the fire burning, because I always tell myself this when things get hard on social media. It's like, if our country goes down the wrong path and then I later realize that there's something I could have done about it, would I have been upset with myself for not doing it? And the answer is always yes. I would be so upset with myself if I didn't do anything when I felt called to. So I love that you talk about keeping the fire burning.
Yeah, so I answer this question with another question, right? What's more important? Actually fighting for this country, or caring about some stupid comments from some loser in their mom's basement just commenting on your feed? Fighting for our country, plain and simple. You have values, and stick to those values. Do not be afraid to be a conservative. Honestly, let's be honest here, right? Why are we being censored? We're being censored because our views are popular. Plain and simple. That's why college campuses want to take us off campus. That's why big tech is after us. They're not after us because we're racist or homophobic or whatever. They're after us because they're scared that we're actually going to get more conservatives. That's it. So don't be afraid to be a conservative. Go out there, go on social media, make posts, make videos, tweet out, and speak on college campuses. Do it. I want my feed after today, when I go down Instagram or Twitter, I want it to be full of every single one of your guys' content. That's what I want. That's how we win this. So don't care about the criticism and all the losers. Honestly, they're losers, guys. Just fight back. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Thank you, guys. That's true. I mean, I've dealt with my fair share, and it's always been really hard, especially starting off in college. I mean, I could go on about that as well, but I think it's really important that we remember that we're doing this with a purpose, and there's a message, there's a conservative message that needs to be spread properly, and that's what you guys are doing. So to elaborate a little bit more basically on that, like what kind of advice would you give if there's any kids out here in the crowd that are just trying to find their niche and trying to develop their brand? Like what would you recommend that they do to be able to get a little bit more involved in just finding that?
I can answer that. I think it's so important to just go for it and stick to what you're passionate about, because so many people get caught up in trying to dabble in everything and learn about everything, which you should. But when it comes to social media and establishing a brand, it's really important to stick to what you're passionate about, because if you don't, you won't be motivated to continue when things get rough and you get the backlash. So I think it's really important to remember that.
Thank you. So, oh, you wanted to say something too?
I would agree with that. I think that's a great point. I think we all have different walks in life, and we all have gifts and talents, and we want to showcase those things, and those are perfect tools to help build your brand, and something that you're an expert at, and you know yourself, you know your audience. And I think knowing your audience and understanding that you're trying to educate them and to open their eyes. And I think that's the question I ask myself every time I post. Does this post have a purpose? Is this going to make a difference in somebody's life, or is this just for personal and self-gain? Because that is something that I think gets confused a lot, and that's why I don't like the word influencer so much. I want to be a woman of influence. I am a woman of influence, and I ask myself before I post, is this message going to make a difference? If someone reads this, is this going to make them question and get their wheels spinning? So I definitely...
I also want to add, just go for it. Don't, if you have some hesitations about what your friends and family might think, just ignore it, because it's more important that you get this message out and that you tell your friends and family how much you love this country, how much you value free speech and the Constitution and things like that. Because if you don't, then other people will think they're alone, and it's so important at this time to let all the conservatives know that we are not alone. So just go for it. Forget your hesitations.
Thank you. That's really good advice. So I wanted to get into another topic that I think has been very prominent today, and just get your thoughts. What would you say, you guys being Latinos as well, and seeing everything that's going on at the border crisis that we're experiencing, and just the lack of attention from the current administration, what are your feelings surrounding that? Like, are you for, just to make it clear, legal immigration?
Yeah, I just want a quick correction. It's called the Biden border crisis. We have to be clear about that. The Biden border crisis, it was caused by this administration, by terrible policy. We know that. We need to secure our border. Now, here's the thing, right? I bet 90% of people here lock their doors in their house, right? Right? Why? Because you want to know who's coming into your house and what intentions they have. Same thing with the border. Same thing. We're not against immigration. We're not against that. Just come through the front door. Knock first. That's the main thing. But then you have the left, right? The left is, they want to bring illegal immigrants to this country. Why? Why? Because they cater to the illegal immigrants, and then what? The illegal immigrants are going to support leftist politicians. That's the whole reason why. So we as conservatives, we want to secure a border. Why? Because we care about American safety. We care about our communities. We care about our jobs. And the left, what do they care about? Support. That's all. Support for themselves. So us as conservatives, fight for a secure border. Absolutely fight for a secure border. That's what we have to do. And I don't know. Looks like Biden is paying attention now. He wants to build the wall. Now he wants to finish the wall.
Yeah, after the whole thing going on.
After 18,000 kids in cages, by the way. Let's make sure we put that out there, right? Because it was racist under Trump, but now it's different.
More than that.
Yeah, now it's. I bet it's more than that. That was like 2 weeks ago. I got that number. But I'll tell you what. If we put enough pressure on this administration, we will get a secure border. So don't stop fighting. Don't stop fighting. We need to secure our border. I live here in Arizona. It affects me. I mean, Bianca, you also live here. It affects us.
I've been to El Paso too, so
Yeah.
I see that.
El Paso. Fight for a secure border. Fight for American jobs. This is American jobs. This is our economy. This is our security, our safety. Keep the pressure. Don't stop. This is how we win.
Thank you, Joe. I guess, you know, what would be another way that we could potentially continue to empower Hispanics? Because I don't know how you guys think about it. I think the majority of Hispanics are conservative. They're just not aware of that. And I believe President Ronald Reagan said that at one point. So how can we continue to just espouse the message in the right way to kind of make them realize and open their eyes and say, oh my gosh, you're right, I'm not a liberal?
Well, we are conservative by nature, whether we know it or not. I mean, I think we have to play on family. I think family is something that all Hispanics can relate to. I myself am extremely close to my family. I mean, they're everything. And we have to talk about a subject that's relatable to the audience. And I think family is a great place to start. You know, talk about, you know, how can you better the lives of your family. That's a great way to start, because that is something that I believe every Hispanic wants for their family and themselves. So I think that's a great way to start a conversation and get those messages out there and start building your audience.
It's really about looking at those values that you believe in, because it's always shocking to me, because I always tell this story. Last year, before the pandemic stuff happened, I was at the Women's March in Los Angeles. I was covering it for a news organization I was working for at the time. And when I got there, what I didn't know was that on basically the same street in LA, on the other side, there was a massive pro-life march going on. And you look at the Women's March and you see pretty much all the liberal types. They got the crazy hair, they got the pink hats, they got all the crazy stuff you see on the news. It was real. And Caitlyn Jenner was there and everything. But then on the other side, there was a massive pro-life march, and it was filled with Hispanics and Catholics, and they had the signs, the pro-life signs, the babies, and all this stuff, but no media coverage there. The media was only at the Women's March. And what's crazy, too, is that I guarantee the vast majority of the people at the pro-life march were voting Democrat, because when you look at the statistics of the way Hispanics vote, it's vastly Democrat. And Trump only got 34% of the Hispanic vote, which was higher than any other Republican president in history for the Hispanic vote. But it's still, in my opinion, it's not good enough, because if you look at what Hispanics believe in, they believe in family, they believe in life, they believe in financial freedom and building businesses, and also, this one goes underrated, pride in country. They believe in pride in their culture, and that's something that Americans really should have for themselves, even when the Democrats are trying to tell them that, hey, you shouldn't have pride in your country because your culture is backwards, it's racist, it's evil. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because the true culture in America is about freedom of speech, it's about Second Amendment rights, it's about the republic, voting, your vote counts, and the government is led of, by, and for the people. And we should have a lot of pride in that.
Yeah, thank you for... Because you brought up a really good point as well when you were talking about the media, and I think it's really important. I don't know how you guys have felt being interviewed by any of the left-wing media. Have you ever realized that maybe they were holding some sort of bias to try to carry out a narrative against conservatives? Did you ever feel like what your perspective, was it ever valued truly by the media, and is that why you got involved with right side broadcasting?
So I haven't actually done any interviews with liberal media, but I can tell you that they don't want you to say your true opinions on things. You look at networks like CNN, and as soon as somebody goes rogue and they start saying something even mildly conservative, they cut feed and they say, oh, we lost it somehow. That's happened so many times.
It happened to me too. I've done some things with like Univision and Telemundo, and with Univision particularly, it happened to me the night before the night of the elections.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, how convenient.
How convenient.
I don't know if that's happened to any of you guys as well. Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just yeah. It's, I mean, like I've been interviewed by a few leftists. I'm not going to name names or anything now. But I've been interviewed by quite a few leftist organizations, and they edit it. They try to make you look like some crazy radical. But you know, what I recommend honestly is to just do it. Record. If you guys are getting interviewed by anyone, also record the interview. Honestly, that's your best insurance policy right there. Record the interview, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I'll add that a big contributing factor to why I started working for Right Side Broadcasting and other conservative networks is to spread the truth. I felt a responsibility to do what the mainstream media wouldn't do. You know, CNN, ABC, even like the moderate news, like The Hill, they won't come out and completely tell you the whole truth. They'll tell you a partial truth. So I just think it's so important that if you do feel led to, or called to be in the media or become a journalist or become a writer, just try, just start it out, see what happens, and hopefully you guys will find what you guys want to do.
Thank you. So Priscilla, I wanted you to kind of talk a little bit more. There was something that you mentioned earlier that really caught my attention, and it's the fact that you grew up, you know, in a family where they were basically cooking their own livestock, you know, the same livestock that they grew.
Yes.
How did you guys grow out of that hardship and get to where you are now?
Yes, so to add on that is I grew up in a family. Anybody familiar with like birria and all that? Yeah, so that was our family. We lived off the land, and that's something that I'm really grateful for, that my family values, they taught me to live off the land. So if, you know, if currency disappears, I can survive from beans and rice. And I actually, I hunt, and fish. So I think that those are two really important things to me, and I'm really grateful that my family exposed me to that. I was 5 years old, and they're butchering a chivo in the back, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to cry right now. I have all these feelings, and I don't know how I feel, but I'm really grateful that I grew up that way because, you know, if all things that fall through, then I can survive, and I think that those are really important things that, you know, we don't take into considerations is, you know, our families, they teach you things, and the Hispanic community, we have so many great values and things, and we're losing that in America. And I think that we could learn that from the Hispanic community. We can learn how to take care of our families, how to, you know, become unified, and I really am passionate about being here and doing more with Turning Point USA. I think that we need to continue supporting those values here as well.
Fighting the culture war.
Yes, the culture war.
Well, is there, you know, as we're wrapping up soon, are there any last minute words of advice that you guys want to give to everybody that's out here in the crowd? I think we have time for each one of you to elaborate.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I'll go. I mean, guys, I want you to remember where we come from. We come from tyranny, dictatorships, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, Argentina. Remember that your entire life. That's why we came here. That's why we came to the land of the free. That's why we fight here. Always, always remember that. We're not going to stop fighting until socialism is never going to be in America, but that fight is always going to happen. It's always going to happen. And I'll tell you this, you know, thankfully, I mean, my family escaped a fascist regime. Came to America, a land of opportunity, to escape from that. And now we're doing great. And a lot of people from Venezuela are coming to America to do the same thing. A lot of people from Cuba are coming to America to do the same thing. There's no one going to the socialist utopia of Venezuela. We're always going to fight back against the radical left here. It's going to be a long fight. But you're in it for your kids that you might not even know who they are, by the way. But you're in it for your kids, for their future, for the future of this country. Because I don't want my kids growing up in some socialist America. It's not going to happen on my watch. We're going to keep fighting against socialism and radical cultural Marxism that's taking over college campuses, taking over our media. We're going to keep fighting because we're not going to become Venezuela. We're not going to become anything like Europe. We are the United States of America. We are unique for a reason.
I want everyone to feel empowered and inspired to go and pursue politics. It seems overwhelming, especially right now. I think everyone feels a little bit defeated based off of what has happened over the last year and frankly 4 years, and the radical turn this country has taken through the media and the liberals and things like that. So I think it's just so important that you guys don't give up hope, because there's plenty of hope for this country. We've been here for well over 200 years, and we're going to keep going, and we are going to take our country back in 2022 and 2024.
Yes, we are.
All I have to say is just have courage, stay in the fight, don't let anyone shut you up. Let your voice be heard and keep fighting, because we have to keep fighting for our values and this culture war. We can win. We just have to keep fighting.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys for coming, to my wonderful ambassadors, Turning Point USA ambassadors, and of course, thank you guys as well, everybody in the crowd, for coming here today and engaging in such a much needed conversation. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And in the wise words of Joe Biden, si se puede, right?
Si se puede.
Cause tomorrow I'm also do battle, perform for a princess. But tonight, I can make you my queen and make love to you endless. It's insane the way the name growing, money keep flowing. Hustlers moving silent, so I'm tiptoeing. So keep blowing, I got it locked up like Lindsay Lohan. Put it on my life, baby. I'm gonna give you a ride, baby. Can't promise tomorrow, but I promise tonight. Excuse me, and I might drink a little more than I should tonight. And I might take you home with me if I could tonight. And maybe I'ma make you feel so.
Get on your feet for Rachel Campos-Duffy.
A pleasure to be with all of you today. Thank you so much for having me. Now, I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about myself. I had my start in reality television. So I was on a reality television show, the very first one on MTV, called The Real World. I was on the 3rd season of The Real World in San Francisco. My husband was on the 5th season, which was in Boston. Now, we met on a travel adventure show that was a spin-off, and it was called Road Rules, and we traveled all over the States and into New Zealand, and a year and a half later, my husband and I got married. And 10 years after that, he decided to run for Congress. And now my husband, Sean, is the very first reality television person to go on to national politics. Donald Trump is just the second. Right. And so here's some more reality television trivia for you. My husband and I, and not Kim and Kanye, my husband and I are the very first married reality TV couple. Yes. We are also the most fertile. We have 9 kids who range from 1 all the way to 21. Now, when you have a lot of kids, one of the kids becomes the current family favorite, right? The current family favorite in our house is the baby, Valentina. Valentina was born with Down syndrome. And Valentina is kind of a rock star. She's kind of a superstar. Governor Kristi Noem invited her to her State of the Union address in South Dakota to announce the bill that she actually introduced to ban abortion on babies who are diagnosed in the womb with Down syndrome. So we're really proud of that. That's right. Now, I'm here at Turning Point USA's Young Latino Leadership Summit to tell you that there has never been a more exciting and consequential time to be a young Hispanic American. Every 30 seconds, a Hispanic in America turns 18. That's a lot of people. We're also the most entrepreneurial demographic in all of America. We start businesses at 3 times the rate of any other Americans. There's another poll you should know about, and this one just came out. Guess which group in America is most dissatisfied with Joe Biden's immigration border policies? Hispanics, that's right, Hispanics. Right now, Democrats are scared. They know that their secular, socialist, anti-worker, globalist ideas do not resonate with Hispanics. They do not resonate with Hispanics who are hardworking and God-fearing. But rather than go, I don't know, ask Hispanics, why do you hate socialism? Why are you against abortion? Why are you mad that your business was crushed because of Democrat governors who had crazy lockdowns? No, they haven't decided to soul search and ask us. Instead, they decided to import new Latinos, Hispanics who are illegal, who they believe they can make dependent on government and therefore dependent on them, and therefore more obedient than us. That is the Democrat way. For your generation, this moment is game time. Your future literally hangs in the balance. You are the outmanned, outpowered patriots fighting for America. The liberals are the powerful colonial loyalists, and their kings are George Soros and all the other globalists and tech titans who want to control and destroy us. I'm telling you right now, I am not being dramatic when I tell you that this is your generation 1776. Joe Biden's election has put us on a dangerous fast track to socialism and globalism, and things are moving very quick. In his first 30 days in office, he's signed 50 executive orders. And now that Joe and Kamala are in power, they don't care about polls or popularity. They care about power, absolute power. Without an ounce of shame, they have been doing everything that they said they weren't going to do prior to the election. They're trying to get rid of the filibuster. They're trying to pack the courts. They're opening up the border. They are determined to fundamentally change America. The cost of these changes are your freedom. Now you're thinking, they can't do that. America was built on freedom, right? You're right. America was built on freedom. It was not built on slavery, as the historically inaccurate 1619 Project says. And by the way, don't let those disgraceful woke hucksters rewrite our proud history. In 1776, our founders signed the Declaration of Independence. And for the last 245 years, people yearning for freedom have only wanted to come to one place, America. It's why as soon as Biden won, the border was open, people desperate for freedom and opportunity poured in. No one's rushing the border of Venezuela or Bolivia. There are no dreamers dying to be citizens in Cuba or Guatemala. And yet, the idiot Marxists running our country today want you to bring in the policies. I'm going to let them catch up. I said idiot Marxists, and that's the slide I was looking for. They want to bring those terrible policies here to America, even though they know it destroyed the countries that so many of us came from. Not long ago, since we're talking about AOC, she declared that the people coming from Central America to our border were climate refugees. That's right, she said that. That's definitely fake news. They are coming for freedom. And that includes economic freedom. The desire for freedom is etched in all of our hearts. God put it there. And people will do dangerous and daring, sometimes irresponsible and illegal things for a chance at freedom. I'm going to tell you a story. Last summer, I live in Wisconsin, by the way, and I have a little cabin with my family up north by where my husband's from, a little town called Hayward. And I went to a bar in Hayward called Anglers. Isn't that the perfect name for a Wisconsin bar? I went to Anglers, and I met this man when I was at the bar, and his name was Chippy. Chippy was born in Vietnam, and when I asked him how he ended up in America, he proceeded to tell me the most amazing story I had ever heard. So during the Vietnam War, Chippy was a young boy, and he was living in South Vietnam. Now, the communists from the north were trying to take over the whole country with their evil ideology, and Chippy's dad hated communists. And when he realized that the communists might win, he feared the retribution that could befall everyone from the south and the loss of freedom that he knew was to come. Now, Chippy's dad wanted to flee Vietnam, but he couldn't leave. He couldn't leave because his wife refused to leave, because she wanted to stay with her family and didn't have the same ideas as Chippy's dad. But Chippy's dad so desperately wanted freedom for his 6 children that he actually encouraged his kids to escape on their own. Now, his father devised a plan for little 8-year-old Chippy and his 6-year-old sister to stow away on a ship. And when they were in the planning stages of how are we going to do this, Chippy's told me that he recalled asking his dad, "Where will I go?" And his dad said, "Go to a place with freedom. Go to America." Well, one day, a large shipping ship actually docked up onto the pier of their little village, and this was their big chance, right? The next morning, Chippy and his little sister walked towards the boat. His little sister was carrying their little suitcase with all their little possessions in there, and he snuck onto the boat. And then he looked back, and he realized that his sister chickened out. She literally froze. But it was too late. He was on the boat, she was on the dock, the ship was pushing away, and he couldn't go back. He couldn't go get her, he couldn't change his mind. There he was, 8 years old, on a shipping boat, going, he didn't know where he was going. Someplace with no clothes except the clothes on his back, and his terrified little sister over on the dock. Well, when the boat finally docked, it docked in Malaysia. That's where the boat was going. And then when the adults discovered Chippy on the boat, they immediately took him to a refugee camp that was there. Now, since Chippy's family, remember, they got to go back. This was, late 60s, right? There was no cell phones. He didn't know his address. He was 8 years old. The refugee workers had no idea. They had no hope. They didn't know how to find or locate his parents. So Chippy remained in the refugee camp for about a year. And after about a year, Chippy he won the lottery, basically. He was selected for relocation. And they gave him a choice. They said, you can go to Canada, you can go to Europe, or you can go to America. And his father's words came back to him. Choose freedom. Choose America. And so he did. And he was sent to Minneapolis, where he was adopted by a nice Midwestern family. Now, many years later, the internet was invented, and by this time, he was an adult living in Minnesota. And a man emailed him saying, "I'm a friend of one of your long-lost brothers in Vietnam." Now, Chippy thought, of course, this was a scam, right? But it wasn't, and he soon found out it was real. Chippy learned that his family never gave up looking for him. Sadly, by the time he reconnected with his family in Vietnam, his father and mother had both passed away, and he was told that his mother never forgave his father for encouraging young Chippy to leave Vietnam in search of freedom, and that she died of a broken heart. Now, Chippy pulled out his cell phone and showed me pictures of his family reunion in Vietnam, and I asked him if he had ever had any regrets about what happened to him, if he was angry at his dad for what he put him through. And Chippy looked me squarely in the eye and he said he didn't have any resentment. He said, "No, my father gave me the greatest gift. He gave me freedom. I am so lucky to be an American." Now, to be clear, I am not endorsing children being sent alone to America, and I am certainly not endorsing sending them with evil cartels. The journey from Central America to the US border is extremely dangerous, and terrible things happen to children along the way. I tell you all this because while I strongly disagree with illegal immigration, I 100% understand the sentiment that motivates it: freedom and opportunity. And when I see images of those families trekking across the unforgiving desert, when I see them huddled in those overcrowded detention centers, far from everything they know, my heart breaks for them, and I thank God that I won the birth lottery of being born an American citizen. And every one of us in this room who've never had to make that kind of decision for their family should thank God. But the freedom Chippy and all the immigrants come to America for is not permanent. It is not a permanent feature of this country. It's not even your birthright. As Ronald Reagan famously told us, freedom is a fragile thing. It is never more than a generation away from extinction. It is not ours by inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation. Freedom comes only once to a people. Those who have known freedom and then have lost it have never known it again. And I believe that nothing has revealed the fragility of freedom and democracy like COVID. Big government Democrats and bureaucrats, socialists and globalists have all seized on this pandemic as the perfect excuse to control our population. Take a look at this.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change.
I am still amazed at how easily we have all acquiesced to lockdowns and unconstitutional restrictions, how we have put up with leaders who exempted themselves from the rules that were destroying our small businesses and dreams that have been built over a lifetime. The pandemic mandates, by the way, have also given Karens across America a whole new reason to live. Our country's most annoying virtue signalers have been turning in their neighbors for family gatherings. They're kicking families off planes because their little toddlers won't wear masks. COVID restrictions have given rise to a very un-American surveillance snitch culture. And nowhere is this surveillance snitch culture more embraced than at our college campuses. I have to tell you, I have 2 kids in college, so I'm on college campuses more than you probably think. And I am amazed by how compliant today's college students are. Every time I go to one of these college campuses, I look around to see if I can spy a mask rebel walking to class. And I have to tell you, I never see them. Even though young people have a 99.9% COVID survivability rate, even though all their professors have already been vaccinated, even with all of that, students continue to passively accept endless Zoom classes, even though they're paying 100% of their tuition fees, full price, even though the science proves it's safe. By the way, the Chinese, 94 million kids, have been in school since last summer. Why aren't our college kids in the classroom? College kids obey nonsensical rules like wearing masks outside or while exercising. And the most common thing of all is that the universities have created basically an anonymous snitch list, encouraging students to turn each other in for various COVID restrictions. One of my kids was sent to COVID court because his mask was not worn properly. I just can't believe that these kids have not revolted against, check this out, there are creepy tracking apps that college kids have to put on their phone in order to be part of the college community. And for example, at UW-Madison, it's called the Safer Badger app. And it shuts off, you can't access your dorm. It shuts off your Wi-Fi if you're caught violating, if you don't take for example, you have to take a COVID test every so many days, or if they find out that you're unlawfully congregating, which I want to know how they know that you're unlawfully congregating. So how do the universities get all these students to comply? How do they do it? It's simple. Social shaming. It works in China, and it works here too. People, it turns out, have a real fear of being socially and academically and professionally ostracized. So students won't speak out against the university's foolish COVID rules and regulations because they are afraid they will be smeared as dangerous science deniers. Imagine that, the irony. Because they don't want their reputations tarnished or their future job prospects in any way limited. And I get that. Social justice warriors have been using this tactic for a long time to control speech and freedom of thought on campus. COVID compliance is an extension of the repressive groupthink censorship culture that has already existed on campuses for way too long. But to be sure, COVID has put everything into overdrive. So today, American kids who don't know any better, especially the younger ones, they think it's normal for the government to order businesses to shut down or churches or schools to shut down. Americans today are actually debating vaccine passports, which, just like the tracking apps, are eerily similar to the Chinese social credit score system. On January 6th, people who protested the election results, who never committed a crime, who never even stepped foot inside the Capitol, had their private banking information shared with the FBI. Whoever thought that would happen in America? Last spring, I attended a secret Catholic Mass, and I got communion in secret. It was so first century, honestly. And this is the kind of stuff that happens in China or some of the Middle Eastern countries. I'll tell you another one. Senator Ron Johnson had a hearing to discuss the efficacy of some of the early treatments like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. He invited respected doctors who were actually successfully treating people with this. YouTube censored his Senate hearing. Now let me just say this again. YouTube and big tech disappeared a U.S. Senate hearing. I have to be very clear to you. This is not normal. This has never happened before in America because this is un-American. It's also un-American for corporations and technology companies to coordinate with the ruling Democrat Party and corporate media against the will of the people as they did in Georgia. Georgians have every right to improve their voter integrity, especially after bad actors use COVID, used for everything, to cheat on elections, or at least make it easier to do it. Requiring voters to have an ID is the opposite of voter suppression. It's the opposite of Jim Crow. It ensures no vote is discounted by a fraudulent vote. If you think minorities are too dumb to get an ID, then you are the racist. If Stacey Abrams and Barack Obama were sincere, then they would use the gazillions of dollars that they raised in Hollywood to bus every Democrat Georgian to the DMV to get an ID card. And by the way, Saint Barack Obama, here he is, get this, at a baseball game in Cuba with the evil communist dictator Raul Castro. Equally full of it, by the way, equally full of it are the greedy CEOs of Coca-Cola and Delta, who boycott Georgia for being racist while doing business with the communist Chinese. The most racist country in the world, who doesn't even have elections. The same people who take their dissidents and put them into slave labor camps, who are committing genocide against the Muslim Uyghurs. But by far, the worst is Joe Biden, who said this when asked whether professional athletes should boycott Georgia.
I think today's professional athletes are acting incredibly responsibly. I would strongly support them doing that. People look to them. They're leaders. Look at what's happened with the NBA as well. Look at what's happened across the board. The very people who are victimized the most are the people who are the leaders in these various sports. And it's just not right. This is Jim Crow on steroids, what they're doing in Georgia and 40 other states.
Now remember, this is the same man who refuses to boycott the Beijing Olympics. During the presidential debates, he was asked about the genocide and atrocities committed by China, and he said, it's just cultural. Take a listen. Is that video stuck? Well, I already told you what he said. He said it's cultural. He said it's not a big deal. We'll move on. There's only one reason why Joe Biden wants to cancel Georgia, but not the Olympics. Joe Biden is compromised. Do y'all remember Hunter Biden's laptop? I know it's very easy to get distracted by all the hookers and the strippers and the baby mamas and the homemade porn and the illegal guns and the crack pipes. But by the way, how crazy is it that his tour is going so well, his book tour? By the way, if you don't know, he's also claims he's an artist. He has these like really fancy art gallery shows where he, shows all of his fancy art. Hunter is not an artist. Hunter is a corrupt loser. And his dad, Joe Biden, is the big guy in Hunter's emails who said he was going to get 10% of everything that Hunter brought back from his dirty deals in China and Ukraine and Russia. Do y'all remember that movie in the 90s called I Know What You Did Last Summer? I know it's kind of a 90s thing. Well, the Chinese know exactly what Joe Biden has done for years. And Joe Biden is deep, deep, deep in lies. He can't come clean now. He never will. He can't. He's compromised. He is a national security threat, and he will give the Chinese everything they want to keep his dirty little secrets. He cannot be trusted like Donald Trump to do what's right, to put Americans first, because Joe Biden will always do and put his masters first, his masters in China first. When Joe Biden won, China won. And these are dangerous, dangerous times. Now, I've thought a lot about all these problems that I've laid out for you here, and I have synthesized it down to what I think is the only way that we're going to get through this. America's biggest problem is that people are afraid to tell the truth. We allow Marxist professors to go unchallenged because we want a good grade. We want a promotion, so we go along with the woke, racist diversity trainings. We don't fight for girls' sports because we're afraid of being called transphobic. I have a lot of doctor friends who disagreed with Fauci, but never said it publicly because they were afraid of losing their reputations, even their careers, like the ones who did step out did. But just think about it. What if they'd banned it all together? Could they have erased all of those, canceled all of those medical careers? We might have saved our economy. We could have even saved lives, because some of those early treatments, they now came out just a few months ago and said, oh yeah, they work. We have a deficit in courage in America. We need more people like you to stand up and speak the truth at all costs. And I think it's easy for us to forget. And believe me, The wokesters who are erasing history, they want us to forget. But it is easy to forget how dangerous it was for our founding fathers to defy the English monarchy and establish a new government based on freedom and self-governance. It was high treason. It was punishable by death. By signing the Declaration of Independence, 56 Americans who signed it pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. 9 of those signers died of wounds during the Revolutionary War. 5 were captured or imprisoned. Wives and children were killed and jailed and mistreated and left penniless. 12 signers' houses were burned to the ground. 17 of them lost everything they owned. Not one defected. What would you do to save America? I'm going to leave you with just a couple ideas. Number 1, stick together. When the cancel mob comes after any one of your friends or classmates or even somebody anonymously on Twitter, defend them. Don't be complicit in your silence. Number 2, be informed. Many professors, as you know, are not interested in educating. They want to indoctrinate. And you need to be able to defend your values and your beliefs for the sake of the less informed classmates in the room who will otherwise be brainwashed. And the only possible way for you to do that is for you to know your stuff. So read about our founding, get accurate American history, stay up to date on the news. If you say, I'm too busy to go watch the news or read the news, then listen to some really good podcasts on the way to work or while you're working out. Ben Shapiro, Megyn Kelly, then PragerU, Michael Knowles, even Joe Rogan. I love Joe Rogan. Once you're armed with truth and knowledge, then challenge authority. Yes, your grades might suffer, but guess what? I'd rather get a C than lose my dignity or even my soul. And finally, know your rights and defend your freedom. Fight back against absurd university co-ed rules and regulations. Refuse to do stupid things like wear masks outside or while you're exercising. Demand. There's more of us than them, I'm telling you. There's more of us. Demand in-person learning. You're paying for it. And organize to end this communist-style snitch list and surveillance culture on campus. When we stand up, we give courage to others to stand up. There's more of us than you think. That's all it takes. Stand up and tell the truth. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm willing to take a couple questions if anyone has any.
Hello.
Hi. What's your name?
Victoria.
Nice to meet you.
I've seen you on TV. Even before you came, I recognized you.
I'm shorter in person, aren't I?
Yeah. I'm short too. That's okay. So my question for you is, whenever you approach people who are hateful toward you because of your beliefs or anything like that, how do you approach them?
So, do you mean online, or do you mean if people come up to me in person?
In general, any.
In general? Listen, I think there's a lot more that we can all agree on. I think one of the most interesting things that's happening because of COVID is I'm seeing people on the far left and the far right, not the Marxists, not the globalists, but normal, classic liberals coming together saying, oh my God, what's happening to our country? Find that common ground. Most people are not like AOC. It may seem like that on the college campus because I think a lot of normal people have been silenced, but find that common ground. Talk about ideas instead of labels. I think that always is a smart way to go. I think as soon as you start labeling yourself with somebody who may have a different point of view than you, the label ends up just breaking down the conversation. Talk about what you have in common. And I think, especially in the Hispanic community, I talk a lot about the American dream, because that's something that it doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right or the middle. We all want the American dream. And what's ironic is the people who want to destroy our country and turn it into Venezuela and make this sort of centralized big government that we never, ever, ever were supposed to be, those people want to convince us that the American dream is rigged or dead. Because if it's dead, or if it's never existed, or if, it's fundamentally, flawed because we're this systemically racist country, well, guess what? We need them. The American dream is about self-reliance. The American dream is about doing it on your own through your merits and your hard work. And most people on left and right agree. And all of us in this room especially have an American dream story, where our families came from, how our families made it here in America. And it's powerful. And what the left does not want us to talk about is how you can make it in America and why America is unique and exceptional. That's my advice.
Thank you.
You got it.
We'll only have time for one more question.
Hi, so I'm again thankful that you came. I loved how you spoke. And my question kind of has to do with how do you deal with, I mean, maybe you don't deal with it personally because people don't reach out to you to say it, but I get called like a conspiracy theorist all the time.
Yeah.
So I want
It's the new racist, by the way.
Yeah. So like, what would you suggest as a form of defense for when that is what I'm being called?
Well, I mean, look, they're going to throw whatever they think will work, and it only works if we let them let it work. And again, this is why we need more numbers. This is why we need to give courage to others, because the first person who gets called a conspiracy theorist because they say it's dumb and is not science-based to wear a mask outside. By the way, Bill Maher came out and said that. Did you guys see that? Did you guys see that? It took the liberals a while to get here. But again, with time, when you're based in truth, when remember when I still remember when they were calling Trump and saying that he was, colluding with Russia. And now look who looks dumb on that. Do you know what I'm saying? When they told Ron Johnson and Senator Grassley that it was a Russian disinformation campaign, and they blacked out remember they disappeared all of Hunter Biden media and the laptop. Well, it turned out after the election, they told us there was actually an FBI investigation, so I guess it was real. And I guess we're going to find out what really was happening. And by the way, the Chinese know exactly what's going on. So I guess stay true to yourself. The truth always prevails. And again, I know it's hard. I get paid to give my opinion. So it's a lot easier for me than it is for some of you. I know that you're taking risks, and that's why I wanted to talk to you guys about what other people have done in the cause of freedom, what they've sacrificed for freedom, for telling the truth. And I know there's people in China, I mean, if you don't read the Epoch Times, you should. The Chinese people know exactly what's happening here. Sometimes I get the chance on Fox to actually host a show, and I get to decide what goes on the show. And when I do, I always love, my favorite guests are Chinese dissidents or Hispanic Cubans or Venezuelans, because these people, when you talk to people who come from countries like that, countries that have had no freedom and have tyranny and totalitarianism, in China, all the disappearing on the internet and in Cuba, they've seen all that before. They know exactly what's coming. If we don't put an end to this, we are actually normalizing censorship, normalizing these powerful leaders deciding what truth we get to believe or what information we get access to. That's exactly what Fidel Castro did for 60 years. And we have to stop this. We are on the track to a Chinese-style, authoritarian / globalist, kind of capitalist, but not really if you're not in the elite group. It's scary. And again, just have faith that you're telling the truth. The truth eventually does come out. And find like-minded people. That's why I love these conferences. Stay in touch. It can feel very isolating if you're that girl on campus, right? But you're not limited to your campus. This isn't 1993 like when I was in college. This is, 2021. And you have a whole other community of Hispanic conservatives or just conservative young people in general through the internet. And I encourage you to get strength and reinforcement and some edifying support through those groups. You are not alone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we are out of time, but thank you.
Is that it? Okay, thank you guys. Love it. Thank you.